Hello, everybody. Welcome into the Fantasy Pros Dynasty Football Podcast. I am Ryan Wormeli, joined today by Pat Fitzmaurice and Scott Bogman. Boggs, we missed you last week. How was opening day?
It was great. I got to see the Diamondbacks' historic 14-run inning. I got to see a lot of friends and family in Phoenix. So I had a good time, but happy to be back and talking football with you guys.
Fitz, we had a great time last week. We'll have to somehow manage bringing Boggs back into the fold here for this week's episode.
Yeah, we were trying not to be resentful of Bogman for sitting there and watching baseball, drinking beer, eating hot dogs. But, we survived, but it's nice to be back to the three-man weave.
Of course. Let's jump into the episode here. Jam-packed as always. We're talking buy low, sell high Dynasty trade candidates to revamp your roster. As a quick reminder, all of our early 2024 consensus rankings and tiers can be found at fantasypros.com/rankings. You can also navigate from there to our staff Dynasty rankings on the site as well. We've got rookie rankings in addition to all of that. Let's start with the news and notes quickly. There's really one big one. Stephon Diggs traded to the Houston Texans. It was a blockbuster yesterday morning. Fitz, what was your immediate takeaway from seeing this?
So many things go into this, I guess, Worm. Slight value hit for Nico Collins and Tank Dell, but really the rich get richer at wide receiver. And now, obviously, I think the Bills need to draft someone, but maybe this offers some a value boost to my guy Khalil Shakir. Mostly I was just thinking about CJ Stroud and how the people who drafted him last year, quite possibly as the third quarterback in their rookie drafts behind Anthony Richardson and Bryce Young, they just rolled Yahtzee with that, and it just keeps getting better and better. Like, Stroud has this terrific season, and now they are just going all in on him and trying to win this, maybe win a championship before his rookie contract expires. And like they've got to pay Stephon Diggs a lot. I know the Bills are eating some of his money, but like they signed him to a big 4-year contract extension 2 years ago. But it times out pretty well for the Texans because by the time his contract has expired, that's right around the time they'll have to be thinking of extending Stroud. And obviously they're going to give him a ton of money. But they don't have to do that yet, and they can afford a move like this. So I think it makes sense for both sides. Bills were pretty cap-strapped. They're going to go out and draft a wide receiver, I would imagine, now.
Stroud was the QB3 in all of my rookie drafts last year, for the record. So a lot of people, I was the beneficiary of that in a couple of leagues, getting as late as the 106 even in Superflex. So that is certainly, to your point, something that's really panned out for a lot of people. Bogman, my first takeaway when I saw this was, we've talked a lot about how the clear, in rookie drafts this year in Superflex, there's a very clear top 8. There's tiers within that, but it's a clear top 8. Is number 9 now just whichever receiver the Bills take in the first round?
Yeah, probably. I mean, it has to be because, like Fitz said, I don't think they're going to roll with the combo of Shakir, Curtis Samuel, and Justin Shorter, right? So it almost makes it too obvious that they are going to be taking a wide receiver in the draft, but this is a deep class, so they don't really care. They obviously have a lot of wide receivers they like. I think Stephon Diggs screaming at Josh Allen on the sidelines probably had a lot to do with this move. So, and it hurts. It hurts Diggs a lot, I feel like, because he goes to being the clear number 1, the overwhelming target share guy in Buffalo, to now Nico's going to get more than him some games. Tank might get more than him some games. Dalton Schultz was a big part of what CJ Stroud did last year as well. And they brought in Joe Mixon. I think this team is having an incredible offseason. They just took one of the seconds that Minnesota gave them and turned it into Stephon Diggs. So they basically traded a 1 for Diggs, a 2, a 5, and a 6. I think they're doing pretty good this offseason. They made some good acquisitions. And like Fitz said, this team's Super Bowl odds just got a little better.
Let me ask you guys real fast. Do you think if everyone stays healthy next year, Diggs leads this team in targets?
I don't know.
Yeah, I would say probably, but
I think so too.
It'll be very close.
I was just going to ask how you guys would rank these 3, not for Dynasty, because obviously Diggs is much older than the other 2, but just for this year, going into the season, how are you planning to rank these 3? Because I feel like depending on the person you ask, you're going to get three wildly different combinations. Probably Dell lower just because of the injury, but he looks really good for a stretch there his rookie season. Obviously, we know what Nico did last year and what Diggs has done in the past before Joe Brady was his offensive coordinator. So I think you could really make the case in a lot of different directions, right, Bogman?
Yeah, I mean, it is real hard. Like, I just said Diggs, but now when you ask me the question, I want to say Collins, and I'm probably going to go with Collins. So, yeah, I think I'll go Collins, Diggs, and Tank. Like you said, because of the injury and the size, there are still size concerns with Tank. He's a great wide receiver, but if he can't stay healthy, and that's going to be a theme in his career, that's a concern. So, I think he has to go third. But I don't. If you wanted to put him ahead of Diggs, I understand too, because Diggs is definitely a fading star.
Fitz, same question. Are you ordering those? I think that's probably the way most people order it is Collins, Diggs, Dell. Is that what you would do as well, Fitz?
Diggs, Collins, Dell
Diggs,
for me,
Collins,
because
okay.
I think Diggs is going to demand the ball. Like there might be the diva factor there, but no, I mean, I don't think Diggs has hit the wall yet, but we still have to be at least a little bit concerned about the way he ended last season. I mean, like his run in Buffalo, great overall, averaged 111 catches, over 1,300 yards, 9.3 touchdowns a season. But last year, in his last 10 games of the season, including the playoffs, which was from week 10 on, he averaged 42.2 yards per game, averaged just 5.3 yards per target, and had one touchdown over that 10-game stretch. So we saw some major slippage from him late in the season. I think he's going to have to answer the question of, whether he's still that top dog alpha receiver.
Last question on this, Fitz. I asked about, the 109 in rookie drafts to Bogman. I know you have been a guy who has said you think the 109 is probably Brian Thomas. If he goes before the Bills can pick and they pick somebody else, do you think whoever the receiver is, Xavier Worthy, Keaton Mitchell, Troy Franklin, Lad McConkey, your receiver of choice, would that person in Buffalo be ahead of Brian Thomas in your rankings?
I think so. Like a lot of people, I've heard Brian Thomas sort of connected to the Colts at number 15. If Thomas goes to the Colts at 15 and like my guy Keon Coleman or Lad McConkey, I mean, I think they're going to want a big guy, even if they reached went for someone like Xavier Legette, who no one expects to be a first rounder. If they took Legette there, I think Legette would probably be my 109 over Thomas.
I think that's fair. I mean, we've talked a lot about how after the 108, it's going to really come down to landing spot. This immediately becomes a crazy appealing landing spot. Let's jump into the buy lows here. We're going to give everybody 10 buy lows, and then we'll go to 10 sell highs later in the show. Fitz, let's start with you. Who's your first buy low?
It's Chase Brown. No more Joe Mixon in Cincinnati, so it's going to be some combination of Chase Brown and Zach Moss. A lot of people think Moss is going to be the primary guy. I think Brown's better. But even if I'm wrong, I think Brown is still going to have a very fantasy relevant role. He's most likely going to play on passing downs based on the success he had as a pass catcher last year. I mean, he looked really good last year in limited doses, especially in the passing game. Caught 14 of 15 targets for 156 yards and a touchdown. So the efficiency was through the roof. Granted, yes, a very small sample size, but I mean, Brown is fast and shifty, and he could play on any down and be used as a workhorse if they need him, because he averaged 27.3 carries a game in his final season at Illinois. Like, they worked him into the ground and he held up under that massive workload. So right now his ECR is RB42. I've got him at RB29 for Dynasty.
How early in the draft would the Bengals need to take a rookie running back for that running back to scare you off of Brown? Because if it's like a 7th rounder, you're probably not really concerned. It's more like a depth piece. At what round are you saying, well, this probably doesn't bode well for Chase Brown?
Day 2 would be bad, and maybe even round 4 might be sweaty palms.
Bogman, what do you think?
I agree. And I don't know that Chase Brown is better than Zach Moss, but he definitely is healthier than Zach Moss. Zach Moss has never played every game in his season in his career. He's had a lot of major injuries. He had one coming in to the NFL, which I feel like he's looked better the further he's got away from that bad leg break when he was at Utah. But yeah, I mean, I got to be honest. Fitz got to the list first. And this is one of those instances where I was extremely jealous of 3 or 4 of his picks for, this exercise. Chase Brown was at the very top of my list. So I think it's an excellent pick.
Let that be a lesson to you to get your names to me.
Yeah, I was going to say, I was wondering why Bogman's choices
on
were so
vacation.
terrible. It's because I beat him to the punch.
Oh, yeah. Okay, thanks, Fitz.
Bogman, let's go to your first pick, which might raise some eyebrows, but I think is actually a pretty good one.
Yeah, look, I'm going to say Bryce Young, right? He's QB 20, and I don't know if I would get him that much higher in my overall rankings, right? Like, I think QB 20 is probably where he should be, but I think the overall thought process on him is pretty low after last year. And as you mentioned before, Worm, Stroud was 3. He was behind Bryce Young in a lot of drafts, and it's because he was so good in college. And the Panthers were miserable last season. They were a huge embarrassing failure, but they've added guards, which was a big issue for them. They added Deontay Johnson. They just need any wide receivers that can get separation. They're probably going to add more in the draft. They've hit the reset button on the defense. So the defense is probably, it's like Derek Brown and a lot of free agent signings. So it's going to be leaky. So I think with an improved O-line, another year for Bryce Young, I think we're going to see closer to that 2% turnover-worthy play rate his last 2 seasons in college. He had a top 10 adjusted completion percentage his final year in college. This season, it was only his adjusted completion percentage in the NFL was only better than Will Levis and Kenny Pickett. So I don't think we're going to see this version of Bryce Young again. I think we're going to give him better targets. We're going to give him more time to throw through the draft and through free agency signing. And I think we're going to see a much improved Bryce Young. So I think this may be the time to buy him at his lowest point. So if you can get him now, especially in a Superflex league, I'm going to try to go out and get him.
Yeah, I think it's important to differentiate between buy and buy low. The whole reason why it makes sense is because his value has probably never been lower. And, it's not that you think he's underranked. It's that there's baked in upside. He has the pedigree, and the team around him could hardly get much worse, right? Like eventually you would think they would get better. So it's more like it's a smart swing to take. I don't want to say full on lottery ticket, but it's a smart, upside play to make rather than saying he's going to way outperform his ADP this season necessarily. Right. If that makes sense, kind of mitigate, from the risk standpoint. What do you make of Bryce Young Fitz? Because again, it's hard to have much worse of a rookie season than he did, but we do see quarterbacks take a step in year 2. Again, theoretically the talent should be better. He already has Deontay Johnson added. How are you evaluating Young from a dynasty perspective right now?
I agree with the way you guys see this. And look, I drafted him ahead of CJ Stroud in a league last year. And yes, I regret it, but I'm also not calling it a total loss either. It would be hard to stack the deck against Bryce Young much more than he had the deck stacked against him last year. It was David Carr type deck stackage against Bryce Young. The offensive line was just gross. Adam Thielen, who I believe has 3 or 4 grandkids, was the leading receiver. It was just there was nothing there for him. The infrastructure was so bad and the ecosystem was so unhealthy. And yet, we saw some flashes late in the season. He lit up my Green Bay Packers on Christmas Eve day for over 300 yards and looked really good doing so. So there are signs of hope here. Let's hope he can still be that sort of point guard extraordinaire type quarterback. A lot of people thought he'd be coming in because the tape he put up at Alabama was terrific.
It really was.
I think he can still be that guy.
Fitz, let's stick with you for your next buy low.
It's DJ Moore. And it's possible that some of the people rostering DJ Moore right now are feeling a little bit uneasy with his situation. The Bears brought in Keenan Allen. There are rumors that they might draft Roma Dunze at 109 in the NFL draft at the end of the month. And the Bears are going to be playing a rookie at quarterback, granted a very highly touted one. Moore turns 27 next week, so squarely in his prime. He's gone over 1,100 yards in 4 of his last 5 seasons, despite never having played with a truly prolific passer. Justin Fields last year was probably the best quarterback he's ever played with, and Fields averaged under 200 passing yards a game. So, and yet Moore still had 1,364 yards. So, and some of that was with Tyson Bagent too. DJ Moore is just an awesome receiver. He's really good. So I'm not going to freak out about the situation. And if anyone wants to freak out about his situation and maybe sell him to me at a very reasonable price, I am absolutely game because he's going to earn targets. He's going to make plays. And yes, there's more target competition, but I do like to think that with Caleb Williams at quarterback for the Bears, assuming they do take him, that's maybe going to grow the overall passing pie in Chicago. So even if Moore is getting a slightly smaller share of that pie, with a bigger overall pie, maybe he doesn't lose that much.
Yeah, I'm not sure what his quarterback situation was in high school, but it certainly wasn't good at Maryland, and it certainly wasn't good in Carolina, and it hasn't been great in Chicago. He is about to play with, like, clearly the best quarterback he's ever played with. Bogman, I'm curious, do you see it more? Obviously, Caleb Williams, huge upgrade. We're excited about that. Do you see the addition of Keenan Allen and potential addition of Rome Odunze, or if not Odunze, I think it's likely they add at least another receiver somewhere in the draft. Do you think that the lack of defensive attention that Moore might get now will be more of a boost than the decline possibly in targets?
I really do. Yeah, because, what have we seen from DJ Moore? He's been the number one by a lot in Carolina, the number one by a lot in Chicago, and he has put up great numbers. So to me, he is one of the few wide receivers that has seemed pretty QB proof, right? And if you, like you said, you're going to give him the best one. I don't like everything out of Maryland, but I definitely like DJ Moore. And I think he is going to have his best season this year, whether or not they draft Rome Odunze. I think they're going to be able to pass more. We'll get into it a little bit later. I don't think this run game is going to work as well as they think it's going to work. And the defense is still growing. So I think they're going to need to pass. I think DJ Moore is going to have an enormous season. And I definitely like this buy low as well.
Fitz, we talked about how we really want to see if we can swing a trade live on the air sometime. 101, your pick that you got from Debra for DJ Moore. What do you think?
Not quite. I need the quarterback, Warren.
Yeah,
thank you very much. And by the way, I
fair.
don't think we can call DJ Moore entirely QB proof, because when Baker Mayfield was playing for the Panthers, Mayfield was the one guy who managed to absolutely destroy DJ Moore's productivity.
Well, that's Baker, though. That's not really DJ Moore's
fault.
But you're right.
Then Baker was great last year. It was weird where those two just had no chemistry whatsoever.
Yes, sometimes it's just like two guys aren't on the same page, and it just does not work.
Stephon Diggs and Josh Allen.
That worked a little bit better than DJ Moore and Baker Mayfield. Bob, we give you your next buy low.
I'm going to go with Zach Charbonnet here. And he's not too low. He's RB29, but I am super excited to see what Ryan Grubbs does with this offense. In his press conference, he said, we are going to be a physical team. The team has great skill players, right? The wide receivers are amazing. And the running backs, Walker and Charbonnet, are both really good. Grubbs had a great aerial attack at Washington, but this is the team with McDonald at the helm. McDonald comes from Baltimore, where they ran the ball and played defense. They were one of 3 teams last season that ran the ball more than they passed. They led the league in rush attempts. McDonald's is a defensive guy, but good offensive coaches fit the system to work with the personnel on the roster, not vice versa. So I don't think this is a team that's going to come in here and draft Michael Penix and throw the ball 800 times a game. They could, but you can't do that with Geno Smith, right? Geno is a guy that is, he gets on heaters. Sometimes he's good, sometimes he's bad. So you kind of have to work that out every game. And I think you're going to benefit yourself by running the ball a lot. I'm not saying, I wouldn't put Walker in buy low or sell high or anything. I still think Walker is easily the better running back here. I think he's one of the best running backs in the league. But I do think this is a team that is going to put together a two-headed monster with Zach Charbonnet behind Walker. I think he's going a little bit too low right now. And once again, I think if you're going to buy him, now is the time, because if he has a big season, anything happens to Walker, his value is going to skyrocket. So get him now while he still hasn't really proven himself.
Yeah, Fitz, if I guaranteed you Walker stays fully healthy and is on the team, how would you evaluate Charbonnet based on what we saw as a rookie and what we know of him as a prospect?
Yeah, he's really good, and I guess in redraft I would just make him a handcuff or whatever, but I still want him in Dynasty, even though the path to fantasy startability, I guess, in Dynasty leagues. We're not starting Zach Charbonnet in week 1 if Kenneth Walker is healthy, but
right.
Charbonnet is really talented. and I'm willing to play the long game with him, even though Kenneth Walker is terrific. Like, I love Kenneth Walker. He, when he came out, like, a lot of people had him ranked even with or ahead of Breece Hall. You know, like, Walker was that highly regarded as a prospect, and I don't think he's done anything to, sour us on him at all. But Charbonnet is, like, great deal of potential, run catch threats, good size, like pretty much the entire package. Like, I don't know if Seattle's going to continue to be the 5th run heaviest team in the league like they were last season, but still, like, there's a lot of potential here with Charbonnet. So even though there's not a clear path to playing time, or at least, the sort of playing time that would make him a startable commodity, I'm still willing to buy in if someone's panic selling on him.
Fitz, let's stick with you for your next buy low.
Yeah, Christian Watson. And this is not just Packer homerism. Like, the hangups with Watson are, 1, he's been having these chronic hamstring issues, and 2, the Packers now have a really good and really large collection of young pass catchers. Watson, Jaden Reed, Romeo Doubs, Dontavian Wicks, the 2 tight ends, Musgrave and Kraft. So the Packers sent Watson to a specialist to have them examine the hamstring issue. Hopefully that leads to some adjustments in his, training, diet, exercise regimen, whatever. The hamstring issue is a concern for sure, but it's not enough to make me walk away. And as for the target share thing, like, I am always going to fade the too many mouths to feed narrative as a reason to be down on a player. If a receiver's good, he's going to earn targets and make plays. And I want to bet on a guy who's 6'4", has sub 4.4 speed, who is good enough to score 8 touchdowns over a 4-game span as a rookie, and also scored 4 touchdowns over a 3-game span last year, despite playing in only 9 games. Like, I want to invest in that guy. And if other people perceive all sorts of headwinds with Christian Watson, so much the better for me in making a trade offer to that person.
Bogman, what do you think? And this is a guy who was like, there was a ton of hype last year, and I like in the preseason, Debro was particularly high. So we're only 1 year, removed from that, and there was injury stuff last year. What do you think?
I definitely agree with the sentiment of, too many mouths to feed is a little eye rolling, because we've seen that too many times where, even at a different position, even at running back, even at tight end, if you're the better player, you're going to get the targets. You're going to get the run. As Tony Romo famously described the NFL, it is a meritocracy. If you merit being out there, you will be out there. It doesn't matter who's ahead of you. It's ever-changing landscape every single week. So do I think Christian Watson's the most talented player on this roster? Yeah. I don't have him much higher than his ECR right now in terms of where we're putting all these wide receivers. I actually have him 2 spots below where his ECR is at 42. He's at 40 right now. I don't know that everyone has ranked their rookies, so maybe I'll have him a little bit higher than consensus once everyone does rank rookies. I know some people like to wait until after the draft to see where the landing spot is. So I'll probably be a little bit higher on him than consensus post-draft. And yeah, I'd like to buy him, but the injury stuff, man, is it going to keep happening? That is what keeps me away. So I may be one of those people that you can buy Watson off of, because I don't think he's much more valuable than where he currently is in terms of rankings.
Maximize your Dynasty League success with Fantasy Pros Dynasty Trade Value Chart at fantasypros.com/trades. Our analysts provide you with the latest updates to keep you ahead all offseason. Whether you need single QB or super flex values for players or rookie draft picks, we've got you taken care of. Check it out now at fantasypros.com/trades and make your next trade your best trade. Bogman, give me your next buy low.
Give me Terry McLaurin. He's going off the board, wide receiver 37 right now. And all I can think with Cliff Kingsbury coming in, and to me, it doesn't really matter if it's Jaden Daniels or Drake May. I particularly would want Drake May, but I know Jaden Daniels may fit better for Cliff Kingsbury. It doesn't make any difference to me. Terry McLaurin is going to be the number 1 here. And what made me I think back to DeAndre Hopkins getting in this offense, getting with Kyler Murray, right, and having that first like really huge year when he was fifth in points per game. He was 22nd in his second year under Kingsbury. He was 10th in points per game his third year. His only full health season was that first year in 2020, where he finished fourth overall in total points among wide receivers. McLaurin is the current number one in Washington by a wide margin. It's Jahan Dotson, who was incredibly disappointing last season, and Olamide Zaccheaus next to him. We all expect them to add a wide receiver in the draft, but they're going to take a QB with that first pick. So you're going to have to wait on a wide receiver. It's deep this year. There's going to be a good one, and there's going to be one that could surely pass Dotson, but I don't know if there's going to be a wide receiver in his rookie season to just sail past Terry McLaurin. So I think in this system, knowing this defense is still, they're putting it together. I know Dan Quinn is a defensive guy, but the personnel is not great. The defensive line, especially edge rushers, they added a lot, but they didn't add anyone overwhelmingly great. So maybe better than last year, but not good. I think as long as the QB play is improved, we should expect to see McLaurin eclipse his career highs of 134 targets and 7 touchdowns, which makes him way more than the number one wide receiver 4. I think he's at least a high-end wide receiver 3 to me.
Fitz, to what degree will your opinion of McLaurin in Dynasty change based on which quarterback it is the Commanders add?
Not all that much, whether it's McCarthy, May, or Daniels. I think I'll still probably feel about the same with McLaurin, just as long as it's not Sam Howell, because one, I think Sam Howell is bad, and number two, Sam Howell seemed like he was much more comfortable throwing to the middle of the field than to the boundaries. So I think like it just wasn't a good fit for McLaurin at all. Like McLaurin's always been really good. He's just always aced the eye test. So I'm totally with Boggs here.
Fitz, let's stick with you for your next buy low.
Travis Kelce. Look, if you perceive your dynasty team to be a championship contender in 2024 and the team that has Travis Kelce is maybe rebuilding or retooling, go out and get him, because Kelce is no longer unattainable or super expensive. He's 34 now. He's coming off his worst season statistically since 2015. And yes, maybe he is slowing down a little bit, but this dude still came within 16 yards of his 8th straight 1,000-yard receiving season, and that was playing in only 15 games. So I still think he's going to be a highly impactful tight end playing with Patrick Mahomes, and the addition of Marquise Brown is probably going to make his job a little bit easier, give him a little more room to work with. So go out and get him if you're in contention.
Bogman, I'm curious what you think on Kelce, because I totally see the case that Fitz is making, but would be so nervous that I'd be the one left holding the bag and trading for him the year that this thing actually does nosedive off a cliff, because he's an aging tight end who has had so much usage that it just scares me.
I can't believe the ageist Pat Fitzmaurice here it has Travis Kelce as a buy low, but I love it. Look, sure, at some point you're going to be at some point he's going to decline. He's going to fall off or retire, one of the two, right? It's not his path isn't 5 or 6 more years. I think we all know that. It's 2 seasons at worst, probably maybe 3 seasons. I mean, they win the Super Bowl this year, he could retire. It wouldn't be shocking. And I know his agents want to turn him into The Rock and all that stuff and blah, 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 dating Taylor Swift, blah, blah. All of that, all that off-field distraction, sure. But, I mean, with Rashee Rice being in trouble, potentially getting a, large suspension, if not worse, Marquise Brown, I don't know. He's kind of washed. I think this team is going to draft a wide receiver as well, especially after Rice's issues. But Kelce is still going to be the main guy. And as long as he is out there, he is the dude. And he is a giant difference maker at the tight end position. So, yeah, I'm all aboard this one, especially if it's owner that, manager that wants to get out from under Kelce because he's aging and you can get him just a little bit cheaper. So, Yeah, I'm aboard this, buy the old man Travis Kelce train here for sure. And I like to see the growth from Fitz buying the old men here.
Look, I mean, it's only for a certain type of team, a title contender.
Yeah.
If you're in a productive struggle, you're not going out to get Travis Kelce.
Of course. Yeah.
I just get the sense that like I really have a gut feeling that like the only reason it felt to me that he came back was because he wanted to go for this three-peat that they've been talking a lot about. And so I just am very nervous that they are going to, even more so to whatever degree we saw it last year, even more so kind of save him to unleash him in January. And that, won't help you for fantasy purposes.
Are you rostering him anywhere? Trade with Worm, everybody. That's what we should be doing.
I actually don't think I have him in Dynasty anywhere. So that's, I don't know, maybe that speaks to my pessimism about where he is. At least in terms of trading for him. Bogman, I'm less pessimistic on the guy that you're going to talk about next.
Yeah, Keaton Mitchell going off at RB 49. And the risk here, of course, is that he doesn't come back 100% after a torn ACL. And if that takes him off your list, I get it. I understand that. He started the season on the IR. He ended on the IR. Honestly, I get it. But he didn't have a lengthy injury history at ECU. He had a hip pointer that cost him a game his last season, and then a shoulder injury that, reeks of roster manipulation by the Ravens. I'm not going to accuse anyone of anything, but he started the year on the PUP, right? Didn't play the first 5 games, I think. So, and then he had a hamstring injury that cost him a game. And then, of course, the ACL injury, right? And I know Derrick Henry is coming here, and Derrick Henry is a monster, but once again, with Keaton Mitchell, he is not a dude that has to have 100 carries to make an impact. He balances with Henry perfectly because Henry is that guy that wears down the defense. And last season among running backs with at least 20 carries, he had the best PFF elusive rating, the most breakaway yards, the most yards after contact. He was 7th among running backs in yards per route run. The talent is all there. The risk is the health. And this could be the lowest he is for a while. I think he's the perfect complementary back next to Derrick Henry. And I'm trying to get him wherever I can. He's going to be particularly cheap, especially because I don't think he's going to be able to start the season on time. I think he's going to start on the PUP again. And because that injury was late. And you can probably get him for a song at some point. And I think the closer we get to the season starting and, the more reports we hear about him not being ready, the cheaper he's going to get. So this might be one of those where you want to hold out to closer to the season to get him when people are being frustrated and they don't want to roster a guy that's going to be hurt and stuff like that. But I think right now could be the time to get him. It is a risk, but I don't think it's going to be a very costly risk either. So I would go out and see what it's going to cost for Mitchell if you can.
Yeah, I don't want to hear any accusations of, roster shenanigans this time when he's on PUP because it will definitely be 100% warranted. We've already seen like what the fit can be in this offense. He looked awesome sharing a backfield with Lamar Jackson and Gus Edwards. Imagine now sharing a backfield with Lamar Jackson and Derrick Henry. The health is a question mark, like no doubt about it. But again, just like Bryce Young, you're not saying to go buy, you're saying to go buy low. If you can get him for really cheap, this is I would put the, a moniker of lottery ticket on, but a guy who can hit really big, who has the talent and the fit. Fitz, you are ranking Mitchell quite low. I believe he's in your RB 60s, late 60s range in Dynasty.
Yeah, I mean, I have been the Greek chorus for Boggs up to this point, but I can't get on board with this one. And of course, I knew you were going to be with him on this. Worm is a Ravens fan, but like, I'm just not interested. And I wouldn't even give up a late 3rd round rookie pick for Keaton Mitchell, to be quite honest with you. Like, I just don't see, he's too small to ever have a substantial workload. And so it's going to be tough to decide when you're going to start him in a managed league. Maybe in a best ball dynasty league, he might be a little more appealing because you're going to get those big plays. Assuming he comes back fully healthy, and you don't like to see a back this small have a major knee injury that's possibly going to make him a little less explosive. And, just like there are always going to be durability issues or concerns with the guy this small to begin with. So I'm just not too excited about this, honestly. And, I'm not going to be going out and making offers for Keaton Mitchell. Sorry.
I know he's not the same caliber of player, but it is funny for me to hear you making the case against Mitchell based on like size and stuff like that when you're so high on Devon Achane.
Dude, you're not.
I know they're
you're
not the
not.
same player.
Like,
I know they're not the same player. I know
Oh
they're
my
not the same
goodness.
player. But I've been on shows.
I almost did it, Worm, but I was like, I'll leave that one alone. But
I've
you
been
did
on
it. I
shows
like
with
it.
you and Erickson where you disagree on Achane and you're the high guy on him. So then to hear you making the case against a player that's like not as good, but stylistically maybe similar.
But to Pat's point, Achane's not coming off a torn knee.
I
so-
know. I had to caught up because I've heard that argument on the other side of it, but I'm not saying Mitchell and Achane are anywhere near the same.
They play the same
type of
way.
value.
They have the same style, right? But Achane is an Olympic level sprinter. So
Yes. I want to really be clear. I'm not saying
Yeah.
Keaton Mitchell is Devon Achane.
Right.
Fitz, who's your next buy low?
Jaxon Smith-Njigba. And as with Christian Watson and DJ Moore, I am fading the too many mouths to feed narrative. So, like, I'm happy to swoop in if someone is concerned that JSN situation is still the same as it was last year, where he's got to share targets with the DK Metcalf and Tyler Lockett, who I think a lot of people, or at least the JSN investors, were hoping would move on. Instead, Seattle, brings back Lockett. So I don't know. Maybe people are feeling panicky after JSN only had 628 receiving yards and 4 touchdowns as a rookie. And like there's no more clear path to targets with him. He also had just this weird, he averaged 9.97 yards per catch last year, and his average depth of target was 6.1 yards. So the usage was kind of strange, but I'm optimistic. Boggs was talking earlier about Ryan Grubb, the new offensive coordinator, who managed to juggle 3 really good wide receivers at Washington. So
Yes.
maybe that bodes well for JSN. And just, I still think that this is a really talented guy, and we have no reason to doubt that talent based on his rookie year. And he just turned 22 and was a first-round pick. So still really bullish on this guy. And if whoever drafted him last year is not feeling as good about him as they did a year ago, yes, I will put in a good faith offer to try to get him off your hands.
Yeah, Bogman, I pretty much could not have been higher on JSN last year, and we kind of knew what to expect going into last season with Lockett and Metcalf there, so
Yeah.
I don't feel like I'm scared off at all. What about you?
No, and it's always best to get one of these supremely talented dudes before they have that enormous season, because if he did have that enormous season, he'd be up where Puka Nacua is, right? So does he have the talent to get there? Maybe. I mean, I think he could, but I don't know. I have him a little bit higher than consensus. I think he's still going to be real good. You may have to play the waiting game a little bit. If Geno isn't good, do they go to Sam Howell, who wasn't good in Washington last year? I think my most concerning thing here would be the quarterback scenario, because I don't think Geno played as well as he did, in 2022, in 23. Sam Howell concerns me. So I still think they may be hunting there, which is why I like Charbonnet. But I do think anytime you can buy one of these super talented wide receivers before they put up a Pro Bowl level season is a good time to buy. So I'm absolutely on board with this one as well.
Bogman, sticking with you for your last buy low.
All right, we're going to go low here. Give me Jaleel McLaughlin, who right now is currently sitting at RB64 on our Dynasty list. And who the hell is the quarterback in Denver? We have no idea. We know that the passing game isn't going to be great with probably whoever they bring in. We know that the defense is still weak, especially at putting pressure on the QB. So what is the game plan going to be to counteract that? It's going to be to run the football a lot. And, it's either an old vet or a rookie, and this team is going to be relying on that run game. I'm a believer in Javonte still, but McLaughlin looked good at the end of the year. He's past P. Ryan in the pecking order, in my opinion. McLaughlin had 14 more missed tackles forced than P. Ryan, 20-6, and only 4 more touches than P. Ryan. McLaughlin had a higher yards per carry, yards after contact, breakaway percentage, carries of 10 yards, and graded better than P. Ryan in literally every single PFF category. So the trend started at the end of the season in December with more touches going to McLaughlin than Ryan, 41-34, and I expect it to continue. And this guy is going for a song right now. You can literally get him for, a throw-in, a very late pick. If you have 5 rounds, you could probably get him for a 4th or 5th round rookie pick. And I think I would be willing to do that because I like what I saw from Jaleel McLaughlin, and I love Javonte. I still have him as a very high running back, but I think there's more questions with him coming off the nasty knee injury and not looking great last season. So I think McLaughlin is a really cheap buy low that I want right now.
I was surprised to see him ranked as low as he is in the consensus. I thought Debro alone would have him higher because he's ranking him as a top 24 running back for next season. I think he has him RB 21 in Dynasty, which
I didn't know that.
I have to imagine is the highest anybody.
I got him at 48, and I thought I was going to be high. So I got him as an RB4. He's going off as an RB6.
Debro has definitely planted his flag there. By now, most of you have probably heard of Reality Sports Online, the powerful fantasy sports platform where owners get to build and manage their fantasy team like an NFL general manager. But the question is, have you tried it? It's time to go see what all the buzz in the Dynasty community is about. Free agency, multi-year contracts, rookie draft, multi-team trades, franchise tags, contract extensions, first-round rookie options, automated contract and salary cap functionality, and much, much more. Think it sounds complicated? It's not. The best thing about Reality Sports Online Fantasy Front Office is that it doesn't take any more time than a standard league. It just requires more strategy. Think you're among the fantasy elite? Well, this is the platform to test your mettle. Still not sure? You can test out your general manager skills for free in a mock free agency auction. If you like what you see, use the promo code FANTASYPROS to receive a 10% discount on your team or league today. That's promo code FANTASYPROS to receive a 10% discount on your team or league today. Fantasy just got real at realitysportsonline.com. Guys, let's move into the sell highs. We'll move a bit quicker in this section because we are up on it on time. Fitz, give me your first sell high.
Michael Pittman. A year ago, maybe Pittman was a little undervalued because he was coming off a disappointing 2022. But now I think the pendulum has swung a bit too far in the other direction, and he's become one of the more overvalued players in fantasy football. He averaged 10 yards per catch or has averaged 10 yards per catch and 7 yards per target over the last 2 years, which isn't great. He scored 4 touchdowns in each of the last 2 seasons, and he has 15 total touchdowns in 62 career games. So he did get heavy target volume last year, although much of the year was played with Gardner Minshew, and you have to think that the running volume for the Colts is going to be up with Anthony Richardson at quarterback, and the passing volume is going to be down. And you're left with a guy who doesn't hit on a lot of big plays and doesn't score many touchdowns. If that passing volume and target volume for Pittman is curtailed, he's going to take a hit as far as his value. And so, I just, plus we're talking about the possibility of the Colts getting either a wide receiver or, like, if Brock Bowers were to fall to them at 15, maybe adding a pass catcher. So Pittman might have additional target competition. I would happily take pick 107 or 108 in a rookie draft for Pittman if anyone wanted to give me that. And if I had Pittman on a roster with like wide receiver firepower to spare, I would absolutely swap him out for like Kenneth Walker or some other player of that ilk. And I think I could get Kenneth Walker for Pittman in most leagues.
Yeah, I think that's a good one. I mean, for as much as everybody's really excited about Anthony Richardson as a fantasy quarterback, still a huge unknown about what he is as an NFL passer. We barely got to see it last year. He was already raw in that regard coming in. Inexperience, didn't get a lot of college starts. So there's a huge question mark there. Plus, like you mentioned, they might be adding a pass catcher in the top half of the first round to take targets away from Pittman. So I'm with you there. Bogman, what do you think about Pittman?
I mean, I want to wait and see what they do in the draft, because if they don't take a wide receiver, like if they go Terrion Arnold or, another spot, maybe O-line, whatever it is, then now I'm starting to go, okay, well, we're back to it's Alec Pierce, it's Josh Downs, and it's Pittman, and Pittman is by far the number one there. And, maybe this whole offense opens up with under Richardson. So I think it really depends on what the Colts do. If they take Mitchell, if they take Brian Thomas, a wide receiver very high, now I'm much more likely to trade Pittman. But that's the risk. If you trade for him now, maybe he's cheaper. If you trade him away now, maybe you get more. So that's the risk. It's not one I want to take, but I understand it for sure.
Bogman, who's your first sell high?
All right, listen, the name here is going to jump off the page, okay? And it's Puka Nacua, and he's wide receiver 8. And look, I still have him as a wide receiver 1. He's wide receiver 12 to me. But I at least want to see if I can flip him to get one of those top 3 wide receivers in this class. If I could flip Puka and I could get Harrison, if I could get Neighbors, and if I could get Odunze, I'm doing that. So I know that's not everyone's strategy because Puka was great last year, but he only had one fully healthy season over 4 years in college. He missed 9 games his sophomore season, took a medical red shirt at Washington, transferred to BYU, played the entire next season, then missed 3 more games at the end. He's amazing. He set rookie records, but if I can flip him and get a ton for him, a haul, especially if my team's not very good, this is a guy that can maybe get you back multiple pieces right now. Or if I could replace him with one of those, what I feel like is a safer option at wide receiver, because yes, he's great now, and I think he's going to be good, but who is replacing Stafford? Stafford isn't long for the NFL, right? And, Cooper Kupp is still there, and he was hurt a lot last year. There's just a couple little things pulling at me to where, I'm not selling him for the best offer. That's not what I'm doing here. But this might be the highest he's ever going to be. So I'm at least seeing what I can get for him right now, and I'm considering offers. That's what I'm saying. So I know this name is big. It's going to leap off the page, but there is a reason behind it.
Well, it's the opposite of what we talked about with some of these buy lows, where you're not saying sell Puka, you're saying sell high. If you can get, a haul or a really, really surefire stud piece, then that's worth considering. Fitz, do you agree?
Yeah, I mean, Puka's terrific. He passes the eye test with flying colors, and I'm not really worried about Stafford's age or the presence of Cooper Kupp. But there were some injury concerns with him coming out of college, and those concerns, like now no one's worried because he made it through his rookie season and was used heavily and made it through intact. But I totally get it. Like if I had other good pieces at wide receiver, it makes sense to use Puka as trade bait to maybe get something else.
Fitz, let's stick with you for your next sell high.
David Montgomery, and I am not anti-Montgomery by any means. Quality NFL running back, but I'm inclined to sell high on a guy who just had 13 touchdowns the previous year and is now sharing a backfield with one of the most dynamic, most explosive young running backs in the game in Jahmyr Gibbs. So, yes, sure, there is a role for David Montgomery in the Detroit offense, but he had 15 or fewer carries in his last 5 games of the season, playoffs included, and in 9 of his last 12. So after the Lions they came out of the gates and used Montgomery pretty heavily, got some 20 carry games. We didn't really see the 20 carry games for him at all down the stretch. Also had a career low 16 receptions last year, and there is just not much pass catching upside for Montgomery with Gibbs around. So if people want to look at the lofty touchdown total from Montgomery last season and buy him from me, I'm happily parting with him.
All right, Bogman, who's your next sell high?
Give me DeAndre Swift. What's the difference between Swift's first 3 mediocre seasons in Detroit and his most successful season last year in Philly? It's the run blocking. It was 3rd last year for Swift behind Philly's line. His 3 seasons in Detroit, they were 16th, 20th, and 9th. He never earned the coaching staff's trust in Detroit. He never got the carries, and so he was out quick. Philly gave him a year, and were so impressed by him that they paid Saquon Barkley a ton of money to come and be the new running back in Philly. So I understand that Chicago paid him. I know that he's going to get the first crack there, but I don't think he's better than Roshan, and I think he's not much better than Khalil Herbert if he's better than Khalil Herbert at all. This is a guy that I was high on coming in. I've been supremely disappointed in as a pro, and I am not going to let him getting paid make me have him as he's right now RB16. I don't know why. He's RB29 to me on my board. So there's a bunch of rookies I would take over him. I get that, Caleb Williams is coming in. They have big improvements on this offense. Maybe he can score a bunch of touchdowns, but I just don't think he's that good of a running back. And I would like to sell him high if I can right now, because when I was looking at values, I could not believe he was ranked as high as RB16. 3 mediocre seasons and 1 good one with the line doing most of the work. I mean, look, he made guys miss tackles a bunch, but it's because he got to that second level. Instead of being tackled by linemen, he was being or linebackers, he's being tackled by corners and safeties more last year. So for me, I'm selling DeAndre Swift quickly if I can.
Yeah, Fitz, I agree with Bogman wholeheartedly here. What do you think?
Yeah, and even though the numbers overall were really good last year, it was basically he just had those 2 monster games early. And then after that, the numbers were just pretty good and not great. So like everything was kind of front loaded with him last year. So I'm with Boggs. Like I think, plus the fact that the Bears rolled out a big contract for him, well, at least big by running back standards. Maybe that has a lot of people over appraising him.
Who's your next sell high, Fitz?
Oh, it's Rashee Rice. And this is not entirely about the knucklehead factor with, Rice being involved in this street racing incident, the details of which we don't need to get into because I think everyone's been getting those details ad nauseum over the last week or so. But this is more about the sustainability of what Rice did last year. And there's no denying that he had a really nice rookie season, 79 catches, 938 yards, 7 touchdowns in the regular season, plus the big game against Miami in the playoffs, 130 yards and a touchdown there. My buddy Andrew Cooper of Fantasy Alarm had an interesting point that the Chiefs threw 69 screen passes to wide receivers and tight ends last year. No other team had more than 51 wide receiver and tight end screens. And the Chiefs had 53 screens to wide receivers alone. And most of them were going to Rashee Rice. And a big reason for that is that the Chiefs had so little firepower at receiver other than Rashee Rice. And Rice is really just this short area catch and run guy, at least so far. Like his average depth of target last year was 4.8 yards. He was just doing the little, screens, hitches. The Chiefs didn't have another receiver capable of consistently getting open downfield, and now they've got Marquise Brown, and they're probably going to draft at least one wide receiver from one of the best wide receiver classes we've seen in some time. I think Rice's role is going to be diminished, and it wouldn't surprise me if his rookie season turned out to be one of the best of his entire career. So if I had Rice on a dynasty team, and I have no shares of him anywhere, so this is purely hypothetical, I would try to move him. But I'd probably wait a couple of weeks until it doesn't look like you're panic selling after the Dallas street racing incident.
Yeah, I think this is another really fair one. I mean, Bogman, Fitz laid it out, but let's say Kelce staves off Father Time for another year. They added Hollywood, who's now playing with the best passing quarterback he's ever had. Let's say they draft like one of your Texas guys at the end of the first round. All of a sudden, there might actually be some mouths to feed in KC, not even to mention the legal issues here. So what kind of trades, if you agree that he's a sell high, what would you be looking for, Bogman, in a trade with Rice?
Yeah, I want to get at least one of those second level wide receivers from this class. Like, you're not getting a top 3, obviously. That's what I said I want to trade Puka for, and Puka is way more valuable than Rashee Rice, especially now. But I think this is just such a bad time to trade him because of the street racing thing, right? That is, like, I think this is probably a good sell high, but now because of this incident. Now, look, if they come back and they say, yeah, no one was really terribly hurt in this, it was stupid, but he was lucky, and he gets whatever, a 3-game suspension or whatever, then sell him, right? But it could be more than that. I don't know all of the details. I know it's gross. I know it doesn't look good for the young man here, but it's just tough. It's just such a tough spot. So let the dust settle, I think, on at least the legality before you sell him. But then it's tough because, like you said, if they do add someone in the draft, his value is going to go down a little bit more. So I said before, I'm not that impressed with this Marquise Brown signing. I think he had a good system in Arizona, he had a good quarterback in Arizona, and he still didn't make it work. Mahomes is the best quarterback by a lot that he'll play with, but I just don't know if Brown is ever going to put it together. So I still like Rice. It would have been a good time to sell him, but now it's just tough after this whole incident in Dallas. So not fun.
Bogman, your next sell high?
Give me Tyjae Spears here. And the split for running backs under OC Brian Callahan in Cincinnati were as follows. 2019, Mixon, 278 carries to 53 for Bernard. 2020, Mixon was hurt. He only started 6 games, but in those games, he averaged 19.8 carries per game. Bernard, the backup, 11.2 in the 10 games he started. He had like a couple more carries than Mixon overall. 2021, back to 292 for Mixon, 55 for P. Ryan because Bernard was washed. 2022, 210 to 95, and he missed 4 games. And then in 23, 257 for Mixon, down to 44 for Chase Brown. So look, Taylor was calling the plays. It wasn't Callahan, but they installed the whole game plan together. They like to rely on one running back, it seems. They paid Tony Pollard. Tyjae Spears was here when Callahan came in. It's not a guy that he was, pounding the table for. And Pollard was the big signing. Fitz has mentioned before about the knee stuff with Tyjae Spears as well. There's just too many little things stacking up here for me to value Tyjae Spears as high as he is. I know Pollard had a disappointing season, but after he got over the injury, he was much better down the stretch. So for me, I just don't want to mess with Tyjae Spears right now. I'd like to trade him if he is valued as a low-end RB2 right now.
Quickly, Fitz, what are you doing with Spears?
Yeah, I mean, like if I had him, I don't know. I mean, it feels like, I don't know if you're selling high after the Pollard signing, but yeah, like I'm worried that the knee thing, like maybe he does have one really good season in him, a la Jay Ajayi, who had that great season and then totally turned into a pumpkin. But now that Pollard is there, like any hope we had of Tyjae Spears getting feature usage is pretty much out the window. So yeah, I wouldn't have much use for him.
Fitz, I'm curious to hear your explanation for the next player you want to talk about, because I'm not sure how they could be sold high.
Oh, yeah, it's not even a sell high. It's just a sell. It's Sam Howell. And if you can get a bologna sandwich, pocket change, whatever.
What did I say last week? Not even a bologna sandwich. Just the bologna is fine.
Exactly. I would take a 3rd round rookie pick for Sam Howell in a super flex league if I could get it. And maybe you could in a super flex. Just because Sam Howell did lead the league, Worm, in pass attempts last year with 612. And yet he was quarterback 20 in fantasy points per game, at least among quarterbacks who started 6 games minimum, because he'd be 22 otherwise if you added Anthony Richardson and Joe Flacco. Howell also led the league in sacks with 65. This dude is just a sack magnet, and taking that many sacks is just completely ruinous. We saw what taking sacks did to Justin Fields' value in Chicago. Right. And down the stretch, Howell just completely fell apart over his last 5 starts. 3 touchdowns, 8 interceptions, 51.6% completion percentage, and averaged 4.8 yards per attempt, which is just, those are the numbers of a guy who's going to be starting in the Canadian Football League in a couple of years. So, but 10 weeks into the 2023 season, Sam Howell was the QB3 in fantasy scoring. So if there's anyone in your league who remembers the good times, baby, sell him for a 3rd round rookie pick in a super flex league.
Bogman, I'm not even going to ask you about how to sell high on a quarterback ranked outside the top 32 in our consensus dynasty.
Wait
rankings.
for Geno to get hurt, and then when he's playing, you trade him. That's what I would do.
Don't even trade him after he plays. Trade him like the day Geno gets hurt, and like before the next game. Bogman, who's your next sell high?
Christian Kirk going off at wide receiver 35. Not really a sell high, but he's just valued too high for what he is. I think he's still only 27, but that clock has been running fast. The Jags added Ridley last year, and they seem to keep trying to add talent because they don't really buy into the contract that they gave Kirk. They signed Gabe Davis, Devin Duvernay. A lot of mock drafts have them, taking a wide receiver early, if not a corner. There's a couple needs on this team, of course, but maybe I'm wrong, but I would at least put him on the block. I would take so many of the rookies over him. So if I could get a late 2, an early 3, maybe even I might be moving off Kirk. And his finishes, he had a wide receiver 20 finish. And this is, points per game in 22, but 33, 37, 55, 32, 51. He flirts between a wide receiver 5 and a wide receiver 3. There's not meat on the bone. There's no upside here. So if someone is wide receiver needy and can give you a low end second round pick or, a high or, mid second round pick, that cost is too much. It's too much for Kirk, but you might be able to get it. So because people look at him as a number 1 with Calvin Ridley gone. So I'm looking to sell him right now while I can.
Yeah, Pat, I mean, you have Kirk, wide receiver 37, it looks like, in your dynasty rankings. Kind of a weird spot for trades where it's like, he will start weeks for you at that ranking, particularly once you get into bye weeks and with injuries, but, not like a particularly appealing, asset to go out and try and get. Are you trying to trade him in leagues where you have him?
Yeah, no, I mean, I'd be more inclined to trade for him, maybe. And it's funny, we probably haven't talked about Christian Kirk that much on this show, and it sounds like maybe I like him a little bit more than Boggs, but I know we're kind of up against it on time. We'll table the Christian Kirk conversation for now and come back to it, but I'm not necessarily looking to sell him.
All right, Fitz, who's your last sell high?
It's Nick Chubb. He's had an awesome career, one of the best pure runners of the last decade, but I am fading the injury recovery optimism on a 28-year-old high-mileage running back who is coming off a torn ACL, torn MCL, torn meniscus, an injury that took 2 surgeries to repair. And Chubb had also sustained a major knee injury in college in 2015 when he tore his MCL, PCL, and LCL, plus had some cartilage damage. I love the guy, but I'm totally out on Chubb in Dynasty after last year's injury.
I will say it might sound surprising to people who agree with you, like, oh, that injury was so terrible and he's an aging running back. How would anybody be interested in buying him? We had a bold predictions episode earlier this week with myself, Debro, and Erickson, and I asked the audience to, tweet us some of their predictions, and one of them was something to the effect of Nick Chubb will be a top 10 running back this season. So there are folks out there who are buying in the injury recovery optimism. He's ranked RB 28 in our early ECR, which is Dynasty still. So, you can judge how much that's been updated. But I don't know how you could possibly feel good about trying to acquire him. But you might have somebody in your league that is just a huge fan, loves watching him run, and thinks, he's young enough that he can bounce back. Bogman, what do you make of Chubb right now?
Yeah, this is one of those ones that I was jealous that Fitz got to the page before me, because I absolutely agree with selling him right now. Nick Chubb is a awesome running back, but this knee injury was brutal. He makes a lot of money. He's a cut candidate still. I think, I thought he would be cut by now, so he's probably just going to restructure and be fine for June 1st and all that stuff. But, I thought Jerome Ford did a good job. They brought in Deontay Foreman as well, who's a decent backup. So I just don't know. I don't know that we get the Nick Chubb that we're used to seeing. So I will agree on selling him.
It was such a bad injury that I saw I don't think they even showed it on TV at the time.
They didn't. But, it was against the
Twitter.
Steelers. It was
so of course you could find the video
Yeah.
on Twitter. I watched it once. That was the
disgusting.
only time I've watched it. I've never wanted to
gross.
see that again.
Yeah,
It was
awful.
a bad enough injury. I tweeted something from the Fantasy Pros account that was like a very earnest, like, this is terrible. What a fun player to watch. Hope he recovers. And people were like emotional. They were like mad about it. Like they were like as if it was a joke or something, which it definitely wasn't. And it was like, I want to watch Nick Chubb run. He's so fun as a running back. A huge fan. And that was such a crusher to see last season. By the way, he's RB 23 in our early 2024 rankings, RB 28 in our dynasty rankings right now.
Too high.
I think it's too high in both.
Same.
Bogman, final sell high.
Jerry Jeudy. He was wide receiver 51, but I don't think that is how he has been perceived after being traded to Cleveland. I mean, we just mentioned Nick Chubb, right? People are saying, well, Nick Chubb is down. Cooper's older. We're going to get Watson back. They got Jeudy and they extended him. I just don't believe in Jeudy even a little bit. He suffered through some truly awful quarterback play, but when a guy like Cortland Sutton can make it work, I don't have any excuses for Jeudy. Jeudy was 92nd in PFF receiving grade last year, 151st of 153 3, I think, or something. And contested catch percentage, he can't separate. He was 85 of 94 wide receivers against man coverage. He was middle of the road against zone. He can run after the catch a little bit. He can find the hole in the zone. But unless effort is the problem, and I don't think it is, he's a middle of the pack wide receiver that shouldn't be useful for more than a bench level. And I think some people are going to see him as more than that because he's a buzzy name that got traded and then got extended by Cleveland. So I'm completely off of the Jerry Jeudy train.
Yeah, Fitz, I'm curious your opinion here before we wrap up. And it's not just like the pedigree or the fact that he was traded. It's the fact that they did kind of pay him, in a market where mid-level receivers aren't necessarily always getting paid because you can get the cheaper rookie, especially in a class like this where there's so
surprising
many good
that they didn't
rookies.
just wait and take one, right? Like that was super surprising.
I agree. And so it's confusing to me. And it's the only thing that gives me pause from being overly pessimistic about Jeudy, which is they did pay him. And so you would think they have plans to utilize him and help him like break out to a different degree, or maybe that's just kind of being overly optimistic. What do you think, Fitz?
I don't think we should be confused about it. I think the Browns front office just made a colossal blunder giving him that sort of money. And, Boggs was very nice in not questioning Jerry Jeudy's effort, but we know Steve Smith was not as diplomatic when discussing Jerry Jeudy's effort. And I kind of agree with Steve Smith on that. So I don't know. I was really excited about Jeudy coming out of college. I thought this was the guy who was going to be an exceptional route runner and really extraordinary after the catch. Haven't really seen a lot of that. So I'm with Boggs. I'm just out here. And if anyone wants to follow the money and believe that Jerry Jeudy is going to be this impactful guy in Cleveland, have at it. Give me a late second or even an early third, and I'd be thrilled.
We will get out of there on that. Thank you, everybody, for listening to this supersized episode of Buy Low, Sell High Dynasty Candidates. For Bogman and Fitz, I am Ryan Wormeli. We'll see you again next week.